striding across a square in the center of some city. They were angry, faces tight. The woman's eyes blazed. The man's mouth was a grim line. "Oh, my God," Arnold said. He fell forward, bracing himself against the wall. "Sir?" The young woman was staring at him, alarmed by his ashen pallor and his inability to stand upright. Arnold stared back, panicky, lightheaded. "Are you okay?" Arnold nodded, but the woman was unconvinced. She hurried forward and slipped a hand under his elbow. "Is there some place I can sit down?" he asked weakly. The woman led him up front to a chair behind the counter. Arnold sagged onto it and put his hand to his forehead. "Can I get you some water?" she asked, anxiously. Arnold saw that she was trying to hold it together. He imagined that she was thinking heart attack and wondering what it would be like to sit with a corpse while she waited for the police. "Water would be good. I'm okay. Really. Nothing to worry about," he said, trying to reassure her. "I'm just a little dizzy." By the time the woman returned with the water, Arnold had regained his composure. He took 2 sips and breathed deeply. When he looked up, the woman was watching him and worrying her hands. "I'm much better." He gave her a weak smile. "I'm just not used to this cold. Please, sit here as long as you want." "Thanks." He paused, then pointed toward the exhibit. "The photographer, Bernier, does he live near here?" "Claude? Sure, he's got a walk-up in Chelsea." "I want to buy one of his pictures." Arnold stood up slowly, steadier now, and led the woman to the photograph of the angry couple. As he crossed the room, doubts assailed him, but they melted away as he drew closer to the scene that Bernier had captured. "Do you think he'd see me today?" Arnold asked, as he produced a credit card without moving his eyes from the photo. The woman looked worried. "Do you feel up to it?" Arnold nodded. She seemed on the verge of trying to change his mind. Then she carried the photograph to the front to ring up the purchase. As she waited for clearance from the credit card company, she used the phone. Arnold sat down again. His initial shock had abated and had been replaced by a sense of urgency and purpose. "Claude can see you any time," the woman told him as she handed Arnold his purchase and stationery from the gallery, bearing the photographer's address and phone number. He memorized the address and placed the paper in his jacket pocket. "Thank you. You've been very kind," he told the sales clerk before stepping into the street. A frigid wind greeted him, but Jean Arnold was too distracted to notice. Part 1. Monkey Etiquette. Chapter 1. The headlight beams of Dr. Sergei Kaidanov's battered Saab bounced off a stand of Douglas firs, then came to rest on the unpainted wall of a 1-story cinder-block building buried in the woods several miles from downtown Portland. As soon as Kaidanov unlocked the front door of the building, the rhesus monkeys started making that half-cooing, half-barking sound that set his nerves on edge. The volume of noise increased when Kaidanov flipped on the lights. Most of the monkeys were housed in 2 rooms at the back of the building. Kaidanov walked down a narrow hall and stood in front of a thick metal door that sealed off one of the rooms. He slid back a metal sheet and studied the animals through the window it concealed. There were 16 rhesus monkeys in each room. Each monkey was in its own steel mesh cage. The cages were stacked 2 high and 2 across on a flat car with rollers. Kaidanov hated everything about the monkeys. Their sour, unwashed smell, the noises they made, the unnerving way they followed his every move. As soon as Kaidanov's face was framed in the window, the monkey, 2 from the door in the top cage, leaped toward him and stared him down. Its fur was brownish-gray, and it gripped the mesh with hands containing opposable thumbs on both arms and legs. This was the dominant monkey in the room, and it had established its dominance within 3 weeks, even though there was no way it could get at the others. Rhesus monkeys were very aggressive, very nervous, and always alert. It was bad etiquette to look one in the eye, but Kaidanov did it just to show the little bastard who was the boss. The monkey didn't blink. It stretched its dog-like muzzle through the mesh as far as it could, bearing a set of vicious canines. At 2 feet tall and 40 pounds, the monkey didn't look like it could do much damage to a 190-pound, 5'8" male human, but it was much stronger than it looked. Kaidanov checked his watch. It was 3 in the morning. He couldn't imagine what was so important that he had to meet here at this hour, but the person whose call had dragged him from a deep sleep paid Kaidanov to do as he was told. No questions asked. Kaidanov needed caffeine. He was about to go to his office to brew a pot of coffee when he noticed that the padlock on the dominant monkey's cage was open. He must have forgotten to close it after the last feeding. The scientist started to open the door, but stopped when he remembered that the key to the monkey rooms was in his office. Kaidanov returned to the front of the building. His office was 12 by 15 and stuffed with lab equipment. A small desk on casters stood just inside the door. It was covered by a phone book, articles from research journals, and computerized printouts of contractions that the monkeys experienced during pregnancy. Behind the table was a cheap office chair. Along the walls were metal filing cabinets, a sink, and a paper towel dispenser. Kaidanov walked around the desk. The coffee pot was sitting on a table alongside a centrifuge, scales, a rack of test tubes, and a Pokemon mug filled with magic markers, pens, and pencils. Above the table was a television screen attached to a security camera that showed the front of the building. The pot of coffee was almost brewed when Kaidanov heard a car pull up and a door slam. On the television, a figure in a hooded windbreaker ran toward the lab. Kaidanov left his office and opened the front door. The scientist peered at the hooded face and saw 2 cold eyes staring at him through the slits in a ski mask. Before he could speak, a gun butt struck his forehead, blinding him with pain. Kaidanov collapsed on the floor. The muzzle of a gun ground into his neck. "Move," a muffled voice commanded. He scrambled to his knees, and a booted foot shoved him forward. The pain in his face brought tears to his eyes as he crawled the short distance to his office. The keys to the monkey rooms. Kaidanov pointed toward a hook on the wall. Seconds later, a blow to the back of his head knocked him unconscious. Kaidanov had no idea how long he had been out. The first thing he heard when he came to were the hysterical shrieks of terrified monkeys and the sound of cages crashing together. The scientist felt like a nail had been driven into his skull, but he managed to struggle into a sitting position. Around him, filing cabinets had been opened and overturned. The floor was littered with gasoline-drenched paper, but that was not the only object doused in gasoline. His clothing, face, and hands reeked of it. Then the acrid smell of smoke assailed his nostrils, and his stomach turned when he saw the shadow of flames dancing on the wall outside his office. Fear dragged Kaidanov to his knees just as his assailant re-entered the office, holding the gun and a 5-gallon can of gas. Kaidanov scurried back against the wall, much the way the more docile monkeys skittered to the back of their cages whenever he entered the monkey room. The gas can hit the desk with a metallic thud, and Kaidanov's assailant pulled a lighter from his pocket. Kaidanov tried to speak, but terror made him mute. Just as the lid of the lighter flipped open, an insane shriek issued from the doorway. An apparition, engulfed in flame, eyes wide with panic and pain, filled the entrance to the office. The dominant monkey, Kaidanov thought. It had been able to force open its cage door because Kaidanov had forgotten to secure the padlock. The term monkey etiquette flashed through Kaidanov's mind. He ducked his head and